Chapter 10.
Grayson Miller, you wake up this instant!
The voice admonished him again like it had for the past horrendous 5 minutes. "I'm changing the locks," Grayson muttered into his pillow. His brain pulsed against his skull. He was sure it was going to explode any minute. Maya, yapping like an overexcited puppy, only made it worse. Maya shook his shoulder.
Don't you ignore me. What did you do? Where's Jenna?
Grayson groaned. "And here I thought you came out of concern for me."
I'm more concerned about Jenna.
"Why?" Grayson curled into his blankets.
She's not here.
"I know. Why are you here?"
I came to check on you. David is still passed out. I thought if he was as bad as that, you'd be dead for sure.
"I will be if you keep talking."
Grayson!
She scolded, attacking him with the swift stroke of a feather pillow that felt more like solid iron in his present condition. He was going to die for sure, and it was all his fault. Correction. It was Jenna's fault. She'd left him so confused and frustrated, he'd flip-flopped in bed for hours. He finally gave in and searched the house for a sleeping aid. There was none to be found, and, at the late hour, he hadn't been willing to dress to go into town. He'd ended up using a classic remedy instead. Whiskey. It did the trick. Unfortunately, it did more than put him to sleep. His eyes pounded against his lids. Maya attacked again. Grayson snatched the pillow and tossed it across the room, immediately regretting the impulse as his stomach rolled. "Jenna quit last night," Grayson groaned, pulling the covers over his head.
Why did she quit? What did you do?
"Why don't you ask what she did? Why assume it's me?" Maya tisked.
It's always you.
If Grayson could have felt anything other than stabbing pain, he might have been wounded by that remark. But she had a point. It normally was him who drove people away. Work came before social niceties, but not anymore. This time he was blameless, right? "I don't know why Jenna left," Grayson said from under the covers. "She wasn't acting normal, and then she packed her bags and said she was leaving."
And you let her?
"What else could I do?"
Keep her here.
Grayson peeked from under the covers, wincing at the light. "The last time I checked, keeping a woman against her will was illegal."
You know what I mean?
"I don't. Jenna insisted on leaving. What more could I do?" Maya frowned and crossed her arms, leaning against the bed.
I don't know, but I thought...
"Thought what?" She shook her head.
Never mind, I'm just sorry to see her go.
"Good riddance."
Grayson,
"What?" "She was a nuisance." Maya scowled but didn't respond. "It doesn't matter anyway," Grayson said. "I'm putting the house up for sale today. No, tomorrow." He didn't think he'd be able to do anything today.
what if she comes back?
"She won't."
Why?
Grayson sighed. "Are you going to hammer me with questions all day? Go home and dig into your husband for a while." Maya's face drained. Her hands flew to her mouth as she raced for the bathroom. Grayson winced as she emptied her stomach into the toilet. At least he hoped she'd made it to the toilet. He was not up for cleaning the mess in his current state. He'd rather burn the house to cinders. He flipped back the covers and sat, testing his feet on the ground. When the room stopped swaying, he stood and crossed over to his robe. As he tightened the belt around his waist, Maya emerged from the bathroom, her hand rubbing her belly.
The baby is trying to kill me.
She complained, wandering over to the bed. She crawled on top of the covers and collapsed. Grayson dipped into the bathroom and returned with 2 cold washcloths. He placed one over her forehead and tossed the other over his entire face as he fell in on the other side. "She's just testing you," Grayson said after a moment.
What are you talking about?
"The baby. She's testing you, making sure you're up for the challenge."
I don't think I am.
She muttered miserably. "If anyone can do it, you can." At the sound of a sniffle, Grayson lifted his washcloth to peek at Maya. She was pressing her fingers to her eyes. "What's the matter?"
What if I'm lousy?
she asked, lower lip trembling. Grayson stopped for a moment. How could you possibly be lousy? As Maya opened her mouth, he realized she had a preformed list. Wait, he said. I have no experience with emotional pregnant women, which I think might be the problem right now. Maya's face screwed into what was going to be a hurricane of tears. But I do know you, Grayson said quickly. You're kind and compassionate. You have a smile for everyone, whether or not they deserve it. You stood by your missing husband for longer than anyone in their right mind would have. Maya scowled.
I would have stayed longer if I'd known he was alive. You know I love him.
I do, Grayson said, content to have an irritated Maya instead of a crying one. And I know that you'll love the baby even more than David. If you stood by David, just think what you'll do for the baby. Maya sighed.
You'll be a great uncle. I know I've said it before, but I mean it.
I'll be the best uncle, he corrected. I only have Ian as my competition, and he hardly qualifies. An alarm blared in the house, followed by a series of slurred curses. I think your knight in shining armor has arrived.
Go help him. You know he can't work your alarm panel when he's hungover.
I'm not sure I can do much better, Grayson said, sitting forward with his head cradled between his hands. I really need to get new locks and codes.
Grayson, just go before the police arrive.
He shuffled out of the room and down to the front door where David was attempting to yank the panel from the wall. Please don't ruin my alarm system, Grayson said.
Just turn the bloody thing off. My head is going to explode.
Grayson crossed over to the panel and punched in the code to deactivate it. It chirped happily and then silenced. David leaned against the wall.
Does it have to be so loud?
The better question is, did you have to come?
Maya left a note saying she'd be here. Where is she?
Resting in my bedroom. I'm going to make a round of peppermint tea.
Does that tea stuff work on hangovers too?
I don't know, but it couldn't hurt. David nodded.
I'm going upstairs.
I'll be there in a minute, Grayson said, heading to the kitchen. He wondered who else would show up uninvited. Jenna floated through his mind, but he quickly pushed her back out where she belonged. The terms were final. She wouldn't be allowed back on property. Not that it mattered what he said. Everyone seemed to feel they were allowed to wander in, alarm or not. When Grayson carried 3 mugs of peppermint tea upstairs, he found David and Maya asleep on the bed, cuddling. Grayson sipped his tea, feeling queasy. Did they have to be so ridiculously in love and on his bed? He set 2 mugs on the nightstand and wandered out, wondering where he should hibernate for the rest of the day. If there were more than a dozen bathrooms, there had to be at least a dozen bedrooms. It seemed logical, although logic in a muddled mind didn't always work. And why didn't he know how many bedrooms he had? It seemed like something a homeowner should know, but he never did think of it as a home. It was just a place with his name on it. He had always stayed on property at the casino. The penthouse had been his home, if you could call it that. More often than not, it was just a comfortable office with a convenient bed to crash on after a long day. Grayson meandered from room to room, not finding the right bed to crawl into. He didn't think he was picky, but the yellow room was too bright, and the pink room was, well, too pink and frilly. He just wanted a comfy bed without all the extras. And then he remembered Jenna's room. He had picked it out for her because it was cozy without all the nauseating frills. Did he dare? He glanced back at his occupied room with a sigh and decided he was too tired to care. He padded up the stairs to his room. He pushed the door open to find everything as he remembered. She must have tidied before she left. That was Jenna. She flew out of the house as if a mob was chasing her, but she made it a point to straighten the room first. The only addition was her laptop, which was on the nightstand. Grayson fell onto the bed, scrunched the pillow under his head, ignoring the scent of lavender, and drifted into a deep sleep. The following day, Grayson felt, if not better, then well enough to start the process of putting his house on the market. Everything would be sold with the house, including his cars. The only thing he'd have to pack is a suitcase. When the realtor left with pictures, notes, and signed documents, Grayson was sure he'd finally feel relief. Instead, he felt adrift. Stepping out onto the patio, he stared out at his half-finished project with a twinge of regret. He never left anything unfinished. But maybe this was for the best. Maybe this was his turning point. If he could consciously stop a project midway through without succumbing to the temptation to finish, then maybe he could finally rest. He was tired. The more time he spent away from office life, the more he realized it. His cell phone rang, jarring him from his thoughts. He reached into his pocket, automatically answering with his standard, Miller.
Are you missing an employee?
Remy asked dryly. No, Grayson said. I don't have an employee. There was a pause before Remy asked.
So, I can let Jenna go.
To anyone listening in, there'd be many questions like, why was Jenna with Remy? But having worked with Remy, Grayson already surmised what had happened. Remy had the habit of detaining anyone he thought might pose a problem for Grayson. Old habits were hard to break, especially if it was one of Remy's. His military training made him scary good at finding people, even when they didn't want to be found. He could pinpoint a targeted person from 100 yards, even if they had altered their appearance with wigs and facial hair. Yes, you can let her go. She quit yesterday. There was another pause.
Did anything happen?
Grayson let an irritated sigh escape. She was acting strange and then informed me she was leaving.
You might want to come down here.
Why?
I've seen some scared people in my life, but I've never seen anyone this scared.
If she's afraid, then send her to the police, Grayson said.
Grayson.
I'm not getting involved.
I can't get involved either. She won't talk to me, and I have my own shit to deal with.
I heard you were acting strange, too. What's going on?
Who told you that?
Maya. She's worried about you. There was a strained silence before Remy said,
It's nothing. A past thorn just returned to town. It's made me a bit edgy.
You're always edgy. Who's in town?
No one that you'd know. Are you going to pick up Jenna?
Call the police and let them deal with her, Grayson said, hanging up before Remy could argue or try to make him feel guilty, which he knew he would. What the hell could have scared her? Grayson stared blankly ahead, trying to shove Jenna out of his mind. It wasn't working. All he could see was Jenna's tear-streaked face. The image made his body tense with mixed emotions. He didn't want to get involved. He wasn't going to get involved. In the past, he had been subjected to too many other problems. People always turned to him for help. For once, he wanted to turn his back on them. But it wasn't them, it was Jenna. And instinctively, he knew she was in way over her head. Damn it. Grayson dashed out the door with a silent curse, texting Remy to let him know he was on the way.
I didn't doubt it for a minute,
was Remy's reply.